Good afternoon. Special edition of Tenney on the Street here at the National Home Delivery Association Forum in San Diego, California. Some amazing stuff happening right here. I've got two panelists coming off the environmental, social, and governance, the new investment language for clients and expectations. So, you guys shared some knowledge with our group. First of all, who are you and what do you do?
I'm Alex Rafla. I'm with Clarendon Capital. We're a middle market private equity fund that exclusively invests in the logistics, transportation, and supply chain sectors. I'm happy to be here. Really enjoyed the panel today. Obviously, ESG is a big component of what we're all hearing about, especially in light of recent news on the new climate action plan. So, happy to
All right. So we're going to cut a couple highlights here. Heather Moore, tell us about your organization and what you do.
Sure. I am with LRQA. We are a global assurance body. I come from an environmental engineering background. I'm an auditor. Now I'm the technical director of sustainability, helping globally our clients and their struggles and wins with sustainability.
I love it. So for those that didn't make the panel, that couldn't make the trip, Heather, tell us two highlights. What are some things around this issue of environmental, social, and governance that, especially, I'll put it in this context, for those that are interested in maybe exiting, what do they need to know? If they're thinking about selling their business in the next 1 to 5 years, why is this going to be an issue? And perhaps what are two things that you can share with our group?
Sure. I think, Alex, you're going to say the same thing, but start measuring your data. You should know how many gallons of fuel you're purchasing for your trucks. That translates directly into emissions. Those are being requested by investors, by regulators. Increasingly, people want to know about your environmental impacts and social diversity of your staff. Percent of women in leadership, whatever your diversity metrics are. Look at that and yeah.
And when by people we mean investors. And the folks that they represent. So what's your take on that? You're part of a capital group that's making these investments. What does ESG play? What role does it play in terms of the decision-making process and how you select possible targets?
So, for us, we invest exclusively in the logistics and transportation industry. By no means do we expect our investments to convert to an electric vehicle fleet right away. That said, we do think ESG are important factors, and with the way we consider those and integrate those into our diligence process in terms to identify any type of material risks associated with those businesses. Like Heather said, there are some proposed regulations coming down, especially on the publicly traded company side, with proposed SEC rules to start tracking greenhouse gas emissions. And even though we focus on the middle market, typically not publicly traded companies, those that are publicly traded companies will be reaching out to their vendor and carrier base to get those metrics for their own requirements. So that's kind of how we view. It's more kind of a regulatory impact on potential investments, and when we look at investments, is there any kind of material risk to that? That's on environmental side. Obviously, social and governance are a little bit different. Heather spoke a little bit about social. On the governance side, that's very important for any private equity investor. We want to make sure that we place the proper controls in place within the organization, the proper oversights in place within the organization, and that's one of the key aspects we look for in an organization. And if those areas aren't fully there, we help build those and to establish the proper governance protocols in those organizations.
Thanks, sir. All right, Heather. So for the folks that are just kind of getting involved, what are a couple of resources that they can go to begin educating themselves about how to take more initiative and be more in command of these important areas in their business?
Sure. So there are standards out there for this. Just to understand greenhouse gas emissions, there's the WRI GHG protocol. There's tons of standards, right? But that's my favorite one about how to put together your greenhouse gas inventory, which is your scope 1 emissions, which are direct emissions that you are causing, scope 2, which are indirect, like electricity, and scope 3, which is your supply chain. There's 15 different categories. The WRI GHG protocol will tell you all about that. And also, I think the other key one that I find most helpful is SASB standards. SASB stands for Sustainable Accounting Standards Board, and they have all these standards based on your industry, and it tells you what topics are material for your industry. So as long as you're reporting on those things, you're pretty well covered.
I love it. Thank you guys for sharing your valuable time with us. That's going to do it for us. We're going to move on to some more information live from the National Home Delivery Association Forum. See you in a little bit.